I was excluded from the family trip to Hawaii. Then my aunt called asking why her card declined at the resort. What do you mean it declined? She snapped. Fix it, now. I was at my desk, 3 months into my new job as the family accountant, the position my father created for me after I graduated with my finance degree. I'll look into it, I said calmly. Here's what they didn't know. For the past 8 years, I'd watched my extended family take lavish vacations while my immediate family scraped by. Every Christmas, every summer, they'd return with stories while we stayed home. My parents never complained, just smiled and said we couldn't afford it this year. When I was 16, I found out why. My grandparents had set up trust funds for all the grandchildren, $50,000 each for college. Mine was empty. Dad had borrowed it to bail out my uncle's failed restaurant, then my aunt's mortgage, then my other uncle's gambling debts. Each time they promised to pay him back. They never did. My college fund became everyone else's safety net. I worked 2 jobs through university, lived in a basement apartment with black mold, ate ramen for months. Meanwhile, my cousins partied on spring break and drove new cars their parents bought with money that should have been locked away. When I graduated, Dad offered me the accountant position. Keep it in the family, he said. What he meant was I understood how to stay quiet while they kept taking. For 3 months, I studied every account, every transaction, every loan that was never repaid. I documented everything. Then I did something they never expected from quiet, obedient me. I froze every account I had access to. My aunt's call was just the beginning. Within an hour, my uncle called about his mortgage payment bouncing. Then my cousin about her credit card. Then another aunt about her car payment. One by one, they all called, furious and confused. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Office. Now. When I arrived, the entire family was waiting. 12 of them, all shouting over each other. My aunt waved her phone. You've destroyed our vacation. The money's gone, I said simply. All of it. The room went silent. My father's face turned purple. What did you do? I pulled out a folder, thick with printed statements and loan documents. I transferred everything into a restricted account, the same type my college fund should have been. You can't do that, my uncle sputtered. That's our money. Actually, I said, flipping through the papers, a lot of it is my money. The money you borrowed and never repaid. With interest, you owe me $73,000. I watched them realize I'd been keeping score. Every dollar they'd taken, every promise they'd broken, every vacation they'd enjoyed while I worked overnight shifts to afford textbooks. This is family, my father said quietly. We don't keep tabs. You're right, I agreed. We don't. But I'm not family anymore. I quit. I placed my keycard on the table. My youngest cousin, Ivy, who'd always been kind to me, looked stricken. What about my student loans? For a moment, I wavered. Then I remembered being 17, calling the university to beg for an extension while my aunt posted photos from Paris. Figure it out, I said. Like I did. I walked toward the door. My father called after me. You'll regret this. You're throwing away your family over money. I turned back. No, Dad. You threw away your daughter for money. I'm just the one who finally noticed. I left them scrambling to figure out which accounts I'd locked. What they didn't know yet was that I'd also filed a report with a forensic accountant friend who'd take a very close look at how family trust funds had been systematically drained for years. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Text after text. Threats. Please. Promises that this time would be different. I blocked every number. That evening, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was my grandmother's lawyer. We need to talk, he said. About your grandmother's will. There's something your father never told you. I sat down slowly. What do you mean? Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? 9 o'clock? I agreed. Hung up. Stared at my phone for 20 minutes. That night, I barely slept. My grandmother had died 2 years ago, right before I started college. The funeral was small. Dad said she'd left everything to be divided equally among her children. No mention of grandchildren, no mention of me. At 8:45 the next morning, I walked into the law offices of Brennan and Associates. The receptionist led me to a corner office where an older man with silver hair sat behind a mahogany desk. Thank you for coming, he said, gesturing to a chair. I'm Thomas Brennan. I've been your grandmother's attorney for 32 years. He pulled out a thick file. Your grandmother, Dorothy, was a very particular woman. She knew exactly what she wanted and made sure it was documented properly. I don't understand. Dad said she left everything to her kids. Thomas's mouth tightened. Your father told you what was convenient. What your grandmother actually did was create a complex trust structure. She left the bulk of her estate, approximately $2.3 million, to be divided among her grandchildren when they turned 25. The room tilted. I'm sorry, what? You turn 25 next month, correct? I nodded, unable to speak. Your grandmother specified that each grandchild would receive an equal share, but only if they met certain conditions. College graduation, financial independence, no criminal record. She wanted to ensure the money went to grandchildren who'd proven they could manage it responsibly. He slid a document across the desk. Of her 7 grandchildren, only 3 have met all the conditions. You, your cousin Maxwell, and your cousin Ivy. I stared at the numbers. 766, 666, 67 each. But Dad told me, your father was named executor of the estate. He had discretion over how information was shared. He chose not to tell any of the grandchildren about this provision. Why? Thomas leaned back in his chair. I can only speculate, but I will tell you that your father attempted to contest this will. Twice. He argued that the money should go to his generation first, to be distributed as they saw fit. Both times, the judge upheld your grandmother's original intent. My hands were shaking. Does my father know I'm here? Not yet, but he'll find out soon. The trust requires notification of all beneficiaries 30 days before distribution. Given yesterday's events, I thought you should know privately first. I thought about the $73,000 they owed me, about the years of struggle, about Dad's face when I quit. What about the others? The cousins who didn't meet the conditions? Your grandmother was very specific. No college degree, no inheritance. She set aside $50,000 for each grandchild's education. If they used it for something else or failed to graduate, their inheritance would be redistributed to those who did qualify. 4 cousins hadn't graduated. Their combined shares would be split 3 ways. I did the math in my head. Just over $1 million. There's one more thing, Thomas said. Your grandmother included a provision specifically about you. She wanted me to give you this if you ever came to my office before your 25th birthday. He handed me a sealed envelope. My name in my grandmother's handwriting. I opened it with trembling fingers. My dearest granddaughter, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. Your father was supposed to tell you about the trust when you graduated high school. The fact that you're in this office means he didn't. I'm not surprised. Your father was always more interested in controlling money than earning it. When you were young, I watched him borrow from everyone who'd lend. I watched him make promises he never intended to keep. That's why I structured the trust this way. Not to punish him, but to protect you. I know about your college fund. I know your father emptied it to bail out his brothers. I found out 3 months before I died. I confronted him. He promised he'd pay you back with interest. I knew he wouldn't. So I made sure you'd be taken care of anyway. The money is yours. Use it wisely. Live the life you've earned. And don't let them take anything else from you. Love always. Grandma Dorothy. I read it 3 times, folded it carefully, placed it in my bag. When do I receive the funds? 30 days from today. The money will be transferred to an account of your choosing. I recommend setting up a trust of your own, with a financial advisor who isn't family. I stood, shook his hand, walked out into the morning sunlight. My phone buzzed immediately. Dad, we need to talk. Where are you? I deleted the message. For the next month, I lived quietly. I found a new apartment, a 1-bedroom in a building with a doorman. I hired my own financial advisor, a woman recommended by Thomas who specialized in protecting assets from family interference. I didn't tell anyone about the inheritance. 29 days after my meeting with Thomas, my father showed up at my apartment. The doorman called up first. There's a man here claiming to be your father. Should I send him up? No. Tell him I'm not available. Through the lobby camera, I watched Dad argue with the doorman. Watched him finally leave, shoulders slumped. On day 30, the money appeared in my account. $1,022,333. I stared at the number for a long time. Then I called Thomas. It's done? I asked. It's done. The other beneficiaries have also received their distributions. Your father has been officially notified that his role as executor is complete. What happens now? Now you live your life. The money is yours, free and clear. I hung up, made a cup of coffee, sat on my new couch in my new apartment and thought about what came next. My phone exploded. 23 missed calls, 47 text messages, 6 voicemails, all from family. Dad, we need to discuss your grandmother's estate. This is a family matter. Mom, please call us. Your father is very upset. Uncle Richard. You owe us an explanation. We're family. Aunt Patricia. How dare you freeze us out? We took care of you your whole life. Cousin Trevor. Heard you got a windfall. Remember who helped you move into your dorm? On and on. Everyone suddenly concerned about me. Everyone suddenly remembering I existed. I blocked them all except Ivy. She called an hour later. Did you get it? She asked quietly. Yes. Me too. A pause. Maxwell called. He said our parents are losing their minds. Maxwell was my cousin on Uncle Richard's side. 32 years old. MBA from Northwestern. The only one who'd ever treated me like an actual person instead of the poor relation. Are you okay? I asked. I'm okay. Maxwell's okay. He said Grandma Dorothy knew exactly what she was doing. Yeah, she did. Our parents are planning something. Uncle Thomas called Maxwell to warn him. They're talking about contesting the will again. They already tried that twice. I know, but they're desperate now. Your dad especially. Apparently he owes money to some people who aren't family. My stomach clenched. What kind of people? The kind you don't want to owe money to. We talked for another 20 minutes. Made a plan to meet for coffee. Agreed to keep each other updated. After I hung up, I called Thomas. They're planning to contest the will again, I said. Let them try. Your grandmother's will has been upheld twice. Unless they have new evidence of mental incompetence or undue influence, they don't have a case. What if they fabricate evidence? Then they'll face charges of fraud and perjury. I've dealt with your father's tactics before. He bluffs well, but he folds when faced with actual consequences. Still, I spent that night researching asset protection strategies, trust structures, legal shields, ways to ensure that even if they somehow succeeded in contesting the will, they couldn't touch the money I'd already received. By morning, I had a plan. I called my financial advisor. I want to set up an irrevocable trust. Today. She walked me through the process. We set up a trust that I couldn't access for 5 years except for approved expenses like education, housing, and medical care. Everything else locked away where no court order could reach it. Then I did something else. I hired a private investigator. I need you to document every financial irregularity in my family's business dealings for the past 10 years, I said. Focus on my father, my Uncle Richard, and my Uncle Thomas. The investigator, a woman named Victoria who'd worked 20 years in white-collar crime, raised an eyebrow. What exactly are we looking for? Fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion, anything that would interest the IRS or the FBI. This could get expensive. I have the money. It took Victoria 6 weeks. She delivered a report that was 147 pages long. I read every word. The highlights. My father had been systematically embezzling from the family business for 12 years. Total estimated theft, $847,000. Uncle Richard had been running a real estate scam, flipping properties using falsified inspection reports. Total fraud, approximately $1.2 million. Uncle Thomas had been betting on sports through an illegal bookmaking operation. Total debt, $623,000. And here's what made my chest tight. The people Uncle Thomas owed money to were the reason Dad had borrowed my college fund. Dad had co-signed on one of Uncle Thomas's debts. When Uncle Thomas couldn't pay, the collectors came for Dad. Dad had emptied my college fund to save himself from his brother's mess, then blamed everyone else. I called Maxwell and Ivy. We need to meet, I said. Today. We met at a coffee shop in a neighborhood where none of our family would ever visit. I brought copies of Victoria's report. They read in silence. Maxwell finished first. He set down the papers carefully. Holy shit. Ivy was pale. My dad did this? My dad too. All of them. What are we going to do? She asked. I pulled out another document, the one I'd been working on for the past week with Thomas's help. We're going to give them a choice. The document was simple. A settlement agreement. They would repay every dollar they'd stolen from the family business, repay every dollar they'd borrowed from the trust funds, and never return sign over their shares in the family business to a neutral third party. Agree to never contact any of the three of us again. In exchange, we wouldn't report the fraud to the FBI, we wouldn't report the embezzlement to the IRS, we wouldn't sue them in civil court for mismanagement of our grandmother's estate. They'll never agree to this, Ivy said. They will, I said, because the alternative is prison. Maxwell studied the document. This is brilliant. Brutal, but brilliant. They taught us well, I said. We spent the next 3 days preparing. Maxwell hired his own investigator to corroborate Victoria's findings. Ivy, who'd just passed the bar exam, made sure the settlement agreement was airtight. Then we invited our fathers to a meeting. Neutral territory. A conference room in a downtown office building. No family members except the three of us and them. Dad arrived first, then Uncle Richard, then Uncle Thomas. They looked older than I remembered. Tired, scared, good. I placed copies of Victoria's report in front of each of them. You have 30 minutes to read, I said. Then we'll discuss your options. Dad opened his copy. His face went white. Where did you get this? Read first. Questions later. They read. I watched them realize what we'd done, how thoroughly we'd documented their crimes, how impossible it would be to deny or defend. When 30 minutes had passed, I placed the settlement agreement on the table. Here are your options, I said. Sign this agreement and walk away with your freedom. Refuse, and we go to the authorities with everything we've found. This is blackmail, Uncle Richard said. No, Maxwell said calmly. Blackmail would be if we were demanding money. We're offering you a chance to avoid prosecution for crimes you actually committed. You have 48 hours to decide, I said. After that, we file reports with the FBI, the IRS, and the state attorney general. Dad looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Fear. You'd really do this? He asked. To your own father? You did worse, I said. To your own daughter. We left them sitting at the conference table. 47 hours later, they signed. All of them. The money was repaid within 6 months. They sold their shares in the family business. A trust was established to ensure proper management going forward, and they never contacted us again. Well, almost never. 2 years later, I got a letter from Mom. I know you don't want to hear from us. I understand why, but I needed you to know that your father is sick. Cancer. Stage 4. I'm not asking you to come home. I'm not asking for money. I just thought you should know. He talks about you sometimes, about how smart you were, how he should have protected you instead of using you. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know he's sorry, even if he can never say it. I read the letter 3 times, thought about responding, decided not to. 3 months later, another letter came. He's gone. The funeral is next Wednesday if you want to come. No pressure. I didn't go, but I sent flowers, white roses, the kind Grandma Dorothy used to grow in her garden. The card said, for the father who could have been. Ivy called after the funeral. Your mom looked for you, she said. I told her you couldn't make it. Thank you. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. And I was. I went back to my life, the one I'd built with my grandmother's money and my own determination. I worked at a financial planning firm, helping other people avoid the mistakes my family had made. I bought a house, a small one with a garden in the back where I planted white roses. I dated, eventually got engaged to someone who'd also escaped a complicated family. Someone who understood that sometimes the best thing you can do for the people who hurt you is let them go. Maxwell became a partner at his firm. Ivy opened her own law practice specializing in estate planning and family wealth protection. We met for dinner once a month, the three of us, comparing notes on our lives and laughing about how far we'd come. Sometimes I thought about Dad, about whether he really was sorry, whether he understood what he'd done. Mostly I didn't. 5 years after Grandma Dorothy's trust distributed, I received one final letter from Thomas Brennan. Your grandmother left one more item in her estate, a letter to be delivered 5 years after distribution. She wanted to make sure you'd had time to build your own life first. Inside was another envelope in Grandma Dorothy's handwriting. My dearest granddaughter, if you're reading this, you've survived. Not just survived, thrived. I knew you would. I want you to know something I never got to tell you in person. When I was your age, my own mother stole from me. She took money I'd saved to leave an abusive marriage and gave it to my brother to start a business. She said family takes care of family. I stayed in that marriage for 10 more years. By the time I finally left, I'd lost so much of myself, I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. I swore then that no woman in my family would ever be trapped by family loyalty the way I was. That's why I structured the trust the way I did. Not to punish your father, but to protect you from becoming who I was. The money isn't just money. It's freedom. It's choices. It's the power to say no to people who think they own you. Use it well. Live boldly. And remember that the family you choose is often more valuable than the family you're born into. I'm proud of you. I always was. Love, Grandma Dorothy. I cried reading that letter. Not sad tears. Relief, recognition, the understanding that someone had seen me, really seen me, and loved me enough to protect me even after they were gone. That night, I did something I'd been avoiding. I called Mom. She answered on the third ring. Hello? It's me. Silence. Then, I didn't think you'd ever call. I wasn't sure I would either. We talked for 2 hours. Not about forgiveness. Not about coming home. Just talking. About her life now. About mine. About Grandma Dorothy and the trust and everything that had happened since. Your father really was sorry, she said near the end. He just didn't know how to fix what he'd broken. I know. Are you happy? She asked. I looked around my house, at the roses blooming outside, at the photo on my mantle of Maxwell, Ivy, and me at Ivy's wedding, at the life I'd built from ruins. Yeah, I said. I'm happy. Good. That's what your grandmother wanted. We didn't become close, didn't have weekly calls or holiday dinners, but we stayed in touch. Brief conversations every few months, updates on our lives, a fragile connection that didn't ask for more than either of us could give. It was enough. 10 years after Grandma Dorothy died, I stood in my garden planting white roses with my daughter. She was 6, with my grandmother's eyes and my stubborn determination. Why do we always plant Grandma Dorothy's roses? She asked. Because Grandma Dorothy taught me something important, I said. She taught me that the best thing you can give someone you love is the power to build their own life. What does that mean? I thought about how to explain it to a 6-year-old, about trust funds and family betrayal and hard choices, about the difference between the family you're born into and the family you choose. It means, I said finally, that sometimes loving someone means letting them be free, even if it's hard, even if it hurts. She considered this. Like when you let me pick my own clothes even when they don't match? I laughed. Exactly like that. We finished planting the roses together. She chattered about her day, about her friends, about the book she was reading. Normal 6-year-old things. Things I'd been able to give her because Grandma Dorothy had given me freedom. That evening, I pulled out the box I kept in my closet. Inside were all the letters. Grandma Dorothy's letters. Victoria's investigator reports. The settlement agreement. The funeral card from Dad's service. And one more thing, the key card I'd placed on the table the day I quit, the day I'd walked away from everything they expected me to be. I'd kept it as a reminder of what I'd escaped, of what I'd become, of the moment I'd chosen myself over family loyalty. My daughter wandered into the room. What's that? A reminder, I said. Of what? That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. She climbed into my lap. Did you walk away from something? I did. From people who wanted to use me instead of love me. That was brave, she said solemnly. Yeah, it was. She hugged me tight. I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby. After she went to bed, I sat with the box for a long time. Then I did something I'd been thinking about for years. I burned it. Not out of anger, not out of bitterness, but because I didn't need the reminders anymore. I knew who I was, knew what I'd survived, knew the value of the freedom Grandma Dorothy had given me. The only thing I kept was Grandma Dorothy's first letter, the one that had started everything. That one, I framed. Hung it in my office where I could see it every day. A reminder that sometimes the people who love us most are the ones who give us permission to leave. 6 months later, I got an unexpected call. Aunt Patricia. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. I know you don't want to hear from me, she said, but I needed to tell you something. I waited. Your father's lawyer found something in his papers after he died. A letter he wrote but never sent. He asked the lawyer to give it to you after enough time had passed. I don't want, please, just listen. I listened. He wrote that he was sorry, that he'd known for years he was destroying you but couldn't stop himself, that watching you walk away was the proudest and most terrifying moment of his life, that he hoped someday you'd understand he did love you, even if he showed it by taking instead of giving. I said nothing. He also wrote that he was glad your grandmother had outsmarted him, that at least one of them had loved you the right way. Is that all? I asked. He wanted you to know he understood why you didn't come to the funeral, that you didn't owe him grief any more than you owed him anything else. Thank you for telling me. Are you okay? She asked. It was the first time she'd ever asked me that. Yeah, I said. I'm okay. And I was. Not because Dad had written a letter, not because family members were finally acknowledging what they'd done, but because I'd built a life that didn't need their validation, didn't need their apologies, didn't need anything from them at all. That's what freedom looked like. 2 years later, I received a call from Thomas Brennan's office. He'd retired, but his partner was handling some final estate matters. There's one more distribution from your grandmother's estate, she said. She set up a secondary trust that was triggered by certain events. What events? The death of your father and both your uncles. All 3 have now passed. I sat down. What's in the secondary trust? An additional $500,000 to be split among Maxwell, Ivy, and you. Your grandmother anticipated that your fathers might consume everything in trying to fight the original distribution. This was her insurance policy. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. Even from the grave, Grandma Dorothy was still protecting us, still ensuring we'd be okay, still one step ahead of everyone who'd tried to use us. That woman was a genius, I said. She really was. The lawyer agreed. The final distribution will be made next month. There's also a letter for each of you. This time, the letter was brief. If you're reading this, they're all gone. I'm sorry you lost them, even if they lost you first. But I'm proud of you for surviving, for building something better, for being stronger than they ever were. This money is for whatever comes next. Another house, your children's education, a business, a dream, whatever you choose. You earned it by being the person they couldn't be. Love always and forever. Grandma Dorothy, I called Maxwell and Ivy. Did you get the letter? I asked. Yeah, Maxwell said. That woman thought of everything. What are you going to do with yours? Ivy asked. I thought about it, about my daughter and the life I wanted to give her, about the roses in my garden and the freedom in my chest. I'm going to start a foundation, I said, for kids whose families stole their college funds, help them pay for school, give them what Grandma Dorothy gave us. I'm in, Maxwell said immediately. Me too, Ivy said. Let's call it the Dorothy Foundation. We started small, helped 5 students the first year, 10 the second. By year 5, we were helping 50 students annually, kids from families like ours, kids who'd been used and exploited and told that family loyalty meant accepting cruelty. We gave them what Grandma Dorothy had given us, freedom, choices, a chance to build something better. And every year on the anniversary of Grandma Dorothy's death, the 3 of us met at her grave. We'd plant white roses and tell her about the students we'd helped, about the lives we'd changed, about how she'd changed ours. My daughter came with me when she was old enough. She'd place flowers on the grave and tell Grandma Dorothy about her life, her dreams, her plans. You never met her? She asked once. No, I said, but she knew me anyway. How? She saw who I could become, and she made sure I had the chance to become it. 20 years after Grandma Dorothy died, I stood at a podium addressing a room full of scholarship recipients. 200 students from families that had failed them. Students who'd worked multiple jobs and lived in terrible apartments and survived on determination alone. Students like I'd been. My grandmother never met most of you, I said, but she knew you anyway. She knew what it felt like to be betrayed by family. She knew what it took to survive. And she knew that the greatest gift you can give someone isn't money, it's freedom. The students applauded. After the ceremony, a young woman approached me, maybe 19, tired eyes, determined jaw. Thank you, she said. My dad emptied my college fund to pay for my stepmother's plastic surgery. I thought I'd never go to school. I looked at her and saw myself at 19, saw every scholarship recipient we'd helped, saw the future Grandma Dorothy had made possible. You're going to be okay, I said. You're going to be better than okay. She smiled. I know, because of people like you. Because of people like Grandma Dorothy, I corrected. That night, I sat in my garden among the white roses. My daughter was inside with her own daughter now. 3 generations of women who'd been given the chance to choose their own lives. I thought about Dad, about Uncle Richard and Uncle Thomas, about all the people who'd tried to control me through obligation and guilt and manipulation. I didn't hate them anymore, didn't think about them much at all, because the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And I was finally, completely free. My phone buzzed. A text from Ivy. Maxwell just donated another $100,000 to the foundation. Said Grandma Dorothy would approve. I smiled. Texted back. She would. Then I put my phone away and sat in the garden as the sun set. The roses Grandma Dorothy had loved blooming all around me. The life she'd made possible spreading out in every direction. I thought about the girl I'd been, eating ramen in a moldy apartment, working 2 jobs, thinking that was just how life had to be. And I thought about the woman I'd become, not despite my family, not because of them, but because one person had loved me enough to set me free. Thank you, Grandma Dorothy, I whispered to the roses, to the sunset, to the life she'd built for me even after she was gone. Somewhere, I like to think she heard me and smiled.